My family kicked me out for being useless, now they work in my building without knowing it. The weight of those words still presses against my chest, even after all these years. I remember the day they told me I was worthless with perfect clarity, the way the late afternoon sun slanted through our kitchen window, casting long shadows across the worn linoleum floor where I'd spent countless hours helping my mother prepare meals. The smell of yesterday's curry lingered in the air, mixing with the sharp tang of disappointment that hung heavier than any spice. I was 22 then, fresh out of college with a business degree that apparently meant nothing to them. 4 years and you've accomplished nothing, my father had said, his voice cold and final. No job, no prospects, just sitting around like some kind of parasite. My mother had stood beside him, silent but nodding, while my older brother crossed his arms and looked anywhere but at me. Their faces blurred together in my memory, a wall of judgment that felt impenetrable. They gave me exactly 1 hour to pack what I could carry, watching from the doorway as I stuffed clothes into an old backpack and gathered a few photographs from my childhood bedroom. The framed picture of us at my high school graduation, the last happy moment we'd shared as a family, shattered when I tried to wrap it too quickly. The sound of breaking glass seemed to seal their decision, and I left without looking back. That night, I found myself on a park bench, clutching the remnants of my former life in a cheap backpack. The city lights twinkled above me like distant stars, indifferent to my plight. I remember thinking how ironic it was that I'd spent my entire life trying to please them, only to be discarded so easily. The rejection cut deeper than any physical wound could have, leaving scars that would take years to heal. In those early days, I learned what true hunger felt like. Not the kind that comes from missing a meal, but the gnawing emptiness that settles in your bones when you realize you have nowhere to go. I took whatever work I could find, cleaning offices at night, serving coffee during the day, anything to keep a roof over my head. Each morning, I would look in the mirror and see a stranger staring back at me, her eyes hollow and haunted. But somewhere in that darkness, something unexpected began to stir. With every rejection, every closed door, every moment of despair, a spark of defiance grew within me. If they thought I was useless, I would prove them wrong. Not for them, but for myself. I started keeping a journal, pouring all my frustration and pain onto the pages until the words became ideas, and the ideas became plans. The first major turning point came when I met Mrs. Patel, the owner of the small cafe where I worked part-time. She saw something in me that I couldn't yet see in myself. "You have fire in your belly, child," she would say, pushing extra hours my way when she noticed I was struggling. Under her guidance, I learned not just how to make coffee, but how to manage inventory, handle customer complaints, and read basic financial statements. It was during those long nights at the cafe, surrounded by the comforting aroma of freshly ground beans, that I began to dream again. I started sketching out ideas for my own business, a place where people like me, who had been cast aside and told they weren't good enough, could find purpose and community. Every cent I earned went into a battered tin can I kept hidden under my mattress, each coin a tiny victory against the voices that still whispered I wasn't worthy. As months turned into years, my determination hardened into something unbreakable. I enrolled in free business workshops at the local library, absorbing everything I could about entrepreneurship. I networked relentlessly, attending every community event I could find, always carrying copies of my business plan in my bag. Slowly, painfully, I began to build something from nothing, piece by piece, brick by brick. The transformation wasn't just external, it was happening within me too. The girl who had once crumbled under her family's criticism was becoming someone else entirely. Someone stronger. Someone who understood that value isn't determined by others' opinions, but by the strength of one's own spirit. Each small success, each hard-won achievement, added another layer to this new version of myself, a version that would soon astonish even me. The idea for Unity Plaza began as a simple sketch on a napkin during one of Mrs. Patel's late-night shifts. At first, it was just a rough outline of a building with different sections labeled cafe, community center, co-working space. But as I stared at those hastily drawn lines, a vision began to crystallize in my mind. This wouldn't just be a business, it would be a sanctuary for those who had been told they didn't belong, a place where people could find both purpose and belonging. I poured every ounce of my being into making Unity Plaza a reality. The name itself was deliberate, a testament to the power of bringing people together rather than tearing them apart. The design incorporated elements that spoke to the journey of rebuilding, large windows that flooded the space with natural light, symbolizing transparency and hope, winding pathways that connected different areas, representing life's unexpected turns, and a central courtyard filled with greenery, a reminder that growth often requires time and care. Securing funding proved to be the most challenging hurdle. Bank after bank rejected my loan applications, their polite smiles barely masking their skepticism about a young woman with no collateral. But I refused to give up. I compiled case studies of successful social enterprises, created detailed financial projections, and even filmed a documentary-style video showcasing the stories of people who needed spaces like Unity Plaza. Finally, a community development organization took a chance on me, providing both funding and mentorship. The construction phase was its own kind of battle. I insisted on being present every day, learning everything I could about building codes, materials, and project management. The contractors initially dismissed me as just another idealistic entrepreneur, but my relentless attention to detail and willingness to get my hands dirty earned their respect. Together, we transformed an abandoned warehouse into something extraordinary. Every aspect of Unity Plaza was infused with meaning. The cafe, named Second Chance Brews, employed individuals facing barriers to traditional employment. The community center hosted workshops on everything from resume writing to emotional resilience, led by people who had overcome similar challenges. The co-working space featured sliding scale membership fees, ensuring that cost would never prevent someone from pursuing their dreams. What made Unity Plaza truly unique was its integrated approach. We didn't just provide services, we fostered genuine connections. Members of the community naturally gravitated toward mentoring newcomers, creating a ripple effect of support that extended far beyond our walls. The atmosphere buzzed with energy and possibility, each success story fueling another. As word spread about Unity Plaza's impact, recognition followed. Local media covered our grand opening, highlighting our innovative model of social enterprise. Awards began appearing on my office shelves, not for personal achievement, but for the collective success of everyone involved. Yet the greatest validation came from watching people transform before my eyes. The single mother who launched her catering business from our kitchen incubator, the formerly incarcerated man who found stable employment through our training programs, the elderly artist who discovered a new audience for his work. Through it all, I maintained a careful distance from my past. My parents' rejection had taught me the importance of surrounding myself with people who genuinely valued me, but it also instilled a wariness that bordered on obsession. I avoided social media, rarely gave interviews that delved too deeply into my personal history, and steered clear of anyone who might recognize me from those early years. The fear of encountering my family again drove me to maintain this carefully constructed anonymity, even as Unity Plaza grew into a cornerstone of the community. Each morning, as I walked through the bustling corridors of Unity Plaza, I marveled at how far we'd come. The scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sound of laughter and animated conversations, creating a symphony of human connection that filled me with pride. Our regulars had become more than patrons, they were family. There was Marcus, the tech entrepreneur who had graduated from our co-working space to launch a successful app, Priya, who ran art therapy sessions for trauma survivors in our community center, and Jamal, whose food truck business had grown from a small stand in our courtyard to multiple locations across the city. The day everything changed began like any other. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when Sarah, our front desk manager, knocked on the door. Her usually calm demeanor was replaced by nervous excitement. "There's a group here looking for work," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "They seem familiar somehow." Curiosity got the better of me, and I followed her to the lobby. That's when I saw them, my father, mother, and brother standing awkwardly by the reception desk, dressed in their Sunday best despite it being Wednesday morning. Time seemed to freeze as I watched them fill out application forms, their expressions a mixture of desperation and determination. Their once proud shoulders were now stooped, their hands calloused from work I couldn't imagine them doing. Later that afternoon, I sat through their interviews behind a two-way mirror in our observation room. My father, who had once declared me worthless, spoke humbly about his experience in manufacturing quality control. My mother, who had silently condoned my expulsion, discussed her organizational skills with quiet dignity. My brother, who had believed success came only through traditional corporate paths, explained how he'd learned to manage logistics for a struggling startup. Their stories unfolded like chapters from a book I hadn't realized I was reading. The factory that had employed my father for 30 years had closed suddenly, leaving him without severance or pension. My mother's administrative position had been eliminated during corporate downsizing. My brother's promising career in finance had ended when his company imploded due to embezzlement charges against senior management. They had exhausted every connection, applied to countless positions, and finally found themselves seeking work at Unity Plaza, unaware that their daughter/brother/sister was its founder. Watching them struggle to articulate their worth broke something inside me. All the years of bitterness and hurt threatened to overwhelm me, but beneath it lay something else: compassion. I saw in their eyes the same fear and uncertainty I had experienced when they kicked me out. The same desperation I had faced on that park bench, wondering if I would ever find my place in the world. I implemented a careful strategy to keep my identity hidden while navigating their integration into Unity Plaza. Under the guise of standard procedure, I assigned them to different departments and scheduled their orientation sessions separately. My father joined the facilities maintenance team, his years of precision work translating perfectly to building upkeep. My mother found her niche in our administrative office, organizing events and managing schedules with the same meticulous attention she had once devoted to family matters. My brother, surprisingly, excelled in our innovation lab, applying his analytical skills to developing new community programs. Every interaction required a delicate balance. I coached managers on how to provide constructive feedback without revealing my involvement, crafting emails and memos that offered guidance while maintaining professional distance. During staff meetings, I positioned myself strategically, speaking from the back of the room or using video conferencing to avoid direct eye contact. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who had built this empire of second chances now found herself hiding from those who had denied her the first. Their presence created ripples throughout Unity Plaza. Co-workers noted how dedicated they were, how willing to learn despite their age and previous experience levels. Regular members commented on my father's friendly wave as he tended to the courtyard gardens, or my mother's warm smile when greeting visitors at events. Even my brother, once so dismissive of non-traditional career paths, had become an advocate for our entrepreneurial training programs. Yet with each passing day, maintaining this charade became increasingly difficult. I found myself lingering near their workstations, listening to their conversations, observing their interactions. During lunch breaks, I would sit at nearby tables, eavesdropping on their discussions about work projects and newfound friendships. The more I witnessed their transformation, the more conflicted I felt about my deception. Particularly challenging were the moments when they unknowingly referenced me. My mother would mention the founder's inspiring story, heard secondhand from other employees. My father would praise the building's design, unaware of the late nights I had spent poring over architectural plans. My brother would discuss future expansion ideas, echoing strategies I had outlined in board meetings. Each instance felt like a thread pulling at the carefully woven fabric of my secret. The tension reached its peak during our annual Unity Awards ceremony. As tradition dictated, I prepared to deliver my speech from behind a screen, my voice amplified through speakers while a generic silhouette was projected on stage. But this year felt different. Looking out at the crowd, I spotted my family seated together in the front row, their faces glowing with pride in their accomplishments at Unity Plaza. My notes trembled in my hands as I approached the podium, the weight of my secret pressing down on me like never before. Many of you know our story, I began, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. How Unity Plaza began as a dream to create a space where everyone could find their place, regardless of circumstances. I paused, watching my family exchange knowing looks, completely unaware that they were sitting in the very manifestation of my journey. We believe in the power of second chances, in the idea that worth isn't defined by past failures but by future potential. The words caught in my throat as I continued. Some might say destiny has a peculiar sense of humor. Just recently, we welcomed 3 new members to our Unity family who embody everything we stand for. They came to us after losing everything, their careers, their security, their sense of self-worth. Yet here they are, not just surviving but thriving, proving daily that it's never too late to rewrite your story. From my vantage point, I could see my mother wiping away tears while my father nodded solemnly. My brother leaned forward, clearly moved by the words he thought were about other people's journeys. The irony was almost unbearable, but something else was stirring within me, a growing realization that perhaps destiny really did have a plan, one that transcended mere coincidence or karma. After the ceremony, I retreated to my office, unable to face the celebratory atmosphere knowing what I knew. Through the window, I watched my family mingling with colleagues, accepting congratulations on another successful year. They looked happy, fulfilled in a way I hadn't seen since before that fateful day they had turned their backs on me. The sight filled me with conflicting emotions, satisfaction that they had found purpose here, guilt over my continued deception, and a deep-seated longing for reconciliation that I hadn't allowed myself to feel before. As I sat there, memories flooded back, not just of their rejection, but of the good times too. Birthday celebrations where my father would grill burgers until midnight. My mother teaching me how to roll perfect rotis. Family game nights that stretched into dawn. These memories hadn't disappeared, they had simply been buried beneath layers of pain and resentment. Seeing them now, thriving in the very space I had created, forced me to confront the truth. They were still my family, flawed and human, capable of both great cruelty and immense love. The question that had haunted me for years resurfaced with renewed urgency. Could forgiveness exist alongside justice? Had they suffered enough for their mistake, or did they need to know the full extent of how their actions had shaped my life? More importantly, did I have the courage to reveal myself and risk everything I had built, both professionally and emotionally? These thoughts swirled in my mind as I watched the last of the guests leave, my family among them. Tomorrow would bring another day of careful avoidance, another day of living in limbo between past and present. Yet something had shifted, a crack had appeared in the wall I had built around my heart, letting in a sliver of light that promised either healing or heartbreak. The decision came to me in the quiet hours before dawn, as I sat in my office watching the city wake up outside my window. The lights of Unity Plaza reflected off the glass, creating a kaleidoscope of possibilities. For years, I had carried the weight of bitterness and fear, but now I realized that holding on to those emotions was keeping me from truly moving forward. It was time to confront the past, not out of anger or vengeance, but out of a desire for closure and healing. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with Sarah and my senior management team. "I need your help with something important," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "There are 3 employees here, my father, mother, and brother. They don't know who I am, and they have no idea this is my company. But it's time I told them." Gasps filled the room, followed by stunned silence. After explaining everything, I asked for their support in orchestrating what would be one of the most difficult moments of my life. That evening, I arranged a private gathering in the courtyard of Unity Plaza. Strings of fairy lights illuminated the space, casting a soft glow over the greenery and stone benches. A small table held tea and snacks, creating an intimate atmosphere. My heart pounded as I waited, rehearsing the words I'd practiced 100 times in my head, but nothing could prepare me for the moment they walked through the gate. At first, they didn't recognize me. Dressed casually instead of in my usual professional attire, I blended into the background until I stepped forward and spoke. "Mom, Dad, brother, there's something I need to tell you." My mother froze mid-step, her eyes widening as recognition dawned. My father's jaw dropped, and my brother staggered back slightly, gripping the edge of a nearby bench. "No," my mother whispered, shaking her head. "It can't be." "It is," I said softly, tears welling up in my eyes. "I'm the founder of Unity Plaza. You've been working here for months without knowing it was me." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap, reverberating between us. For several long seconds, no one moved or spoke. Then my father sank onto the bench, his face pale. "All this time," he murmured, his voice trembling. "We thought we were starting over, finding redemption in someone else's vision. And it was yours all along." I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yes. I built this place because of what happened to me, the pain of being told I was useless, the struggle of rebuilding my life from scratch. But I also built it because I wanted to prove that everyone deserves a second chance, even those who make mistakes. Even you." Tears streamed down my mother's face as she took a hesitant step toward me. "You should hate us," she choked out. "After everything we did to you, after throwing you away like trash, how can you stand there and look at us with kindness?" "Because hatred doesn't heal," I replied, my voice breaking. "For years, I let anger define me. It kept me going when I had nothing else, but it also kept me trapped. Building Unity Plaza taught me that forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened, it's about freeing yourself from the poison of resentment. And seeing how hard you've worked here, how much you've changed, it showed me that people can grow if given the opportunity." My brother finally found his voice, his tone raw with emotion. "Basketball, do you have any idea how many nights I lay awake thinking about what we did to you? Wondering if you were okay? We never meant to hurt you, we were just so blind, so focused on our own expectations that we couldn't see your potential. But losing everything made us realize how wrong we were. About you, about success, about family." I felt a lump rise in my throat as I looked at them, all three of them standing there, vulnerable and remorseful. For so long, I had imagined this moment as triumphant, as a chance to show them exactly how far I'd come without them. But now, faced with their genuine regret, I understood that this wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about reconciliation. "I forgive you," I said simply, the words feeling both heavy and liberating. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. What you did shaped me in ways I'll carry forever. It made me stronger, more resilient, and more compassionate. And while I'll always carry that scar, I want to move forward, together if you're willing." My mother rushed forward then, pulling me into a tight embrace. Her arms shook as she held me, sobbing uncontrollably. My father joined us moments later, wrapping his sturdy frame around both of us, while my brother stood awkwardly to the side, unsure of whether he was welcome. I reached out a hand to him, and when he took it, I pulled him into the circle too. We stayed like that for a long time, crying and laughing and apologizing all at once. When we finally separated, I led them to the table and poured cups of tea, inviting them to sit. For hours we talked, about the years we'd lost, the pain we'd caused each other, and the hope of rebuilding something new. They told me about the shame they'd felt after losing everything, how they'd come to understand the value of humility and hard work. I shared stories of my journey, not just the successes but the struggles too, the nights spent sleeping on park benches, the rejection letters, the moments when I'd almost given up. By the end of the evening, something remarkable had shifted. The walls between us weren't completely gone, but they were thinner, more permeable. There was still work to be done, trust to rebuild, wounds to heal, but for the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe that it was possible. In the weeks that followed, our relationship began to transform. My parents started joining me for meals at Second Chance Brews, where co-workers greeted them warmly. My brother and I collaborated on new projects for the Innovation Lab, discovering a shared passion for creative problem-solving. Slowly but surely, they became part of the Unity Plaza family, not just as employees, but as integral members of the community I had created. One day, during a staff meeting, I announced that I would be stepping into a more public role within the company. Unity Plaza has always been about transparency and connection, I said, addressing the gathered team. And for too long, I've hidden behind anonymity. It's time for me to fully embrace who I am, and where I came from. When I introduced my family to the staff, explaining our complicated history and journey toward reconciliation, the room erupted in applause. Co-workers approached me afterward, sharing their own stories of forgiveness and second chances. It was a powerful reminder that none of us are defined solely by our worst moments. We are all works in progress, capable of growth and transformation. As Unity Plaza continued to thrive, so did my family. My father took pride in maintaining the building that symbolized his daughter's resilience. My mother became a beloved figure in the community center, organizing events that brought people together. My brother found purpose mentoring young entrepreneurs, helping them navigate the challenges he once dismissed. Together, we turned what could have been a story of bitterness into one of redemption and love. Looking back, I realized that Unity Plaza wasn't just a sanctuary for others, it was also a bridge back to my family. It forced us to confront our flaws, to acknowledge the harm we'd caused each other, and to choose forgiveness over resentment. In doing so, it reminded me of the truth I had always believed but struggled to live, that everyone deserves a second chance, even those who once denied you yours. And so, surrounded by the people I loved and the community I had built, I found peace. Not the kind that erases the past, but the kind that makes room for healing. The kind that allows you to look at the people who hurt you and say, I forgive you, and I still choose to love you. In the end, that choice wasn't just a gift to them, it was a gift to myself.